All right, so let's talk about simple payback. Simple payback is very commonly used in the energy field, whether it's residential or commercial, when you're talking about solar, energy efficiency, and so forth. It's used in a lot of different applications. It's not the best, most robust metric, but you do see it out there a lot. So I'll go over it here. And it's also a relatively simple calculation as long as you have the inputs. So simple payback just tells you how long something will take to pay for itself, the sort of break-even point. So if I have a simple payback of 4 years, that means in 4 years, I have an upfront cost, and in 4 years, I'll save enough money to have paid for that upfront cost. Okay, so something that's very intuitive that people generally readily understand. The formula to calculate it is actually very simple. You have to look at the upfront cost difference between two choices. So it always involves a choice between two things. Sometimes one choice is to do nothing. So let's say you have a light bulb and I want to replace it. My choice is, do I replace it or do I just leave the same one in there? So it's the difference in cost between making these two choices and then the annual savings of doing the more expensive choice. So again, if I have if I have a light bulb that I want to change, it costs me some money to replace it with a more efficient light bulb, but I'm going to save some money each year, so eventually that hopefully will pay for itself. So it's easiest just to go over an example. But just remember, you just need the upfront cost, you divide it by the annual savings, and that's your simple payback. So let's look at an example. Deciding between two furnaces, um, if I'm going to pay $2,000 more for one furnace, but I would save $500 per year because it's more efficient, what's the simple payback? Okay, so let's just go through the formula here. Again, difference in upfront cost divided by your annual savings. Okay, so in this case, the difference in upfront cost here is $2,000, and I'm going to save $500 a year. So you simply divide those two numbers, and you end up with 4 years. And you notice that actually the units do work out here because you'd cancel out the dollars, and then years, if you divide by something divided by years, it ends up on the top. The important thing to remember is if you just have the upfront cost difference divided by the annual savings, you end up with a simple payback in whatever that unit is. So it's usually going to be in years. Okay. So pretty straightforward. This just means if you had to explain this to the person that you're talking to that has to replace the furnace, you could just say it's going to cost you $2,000 up front, but in 4 years you'll have saved $2,000 total, or in 4 years you'll break even. However, there's different ways to explain it, but that's what it means. Okay, let's go through another example. So what's the simple payback? Let's say it's the same situation except I'm only saving $100 a year in fuel costs. So use the same formula, $2,000, but this time it's divided by $100 because that's my annual savings, and it is 20 years. So this is why it's important to keep simple payback in mind, because if something costs $2,000 if it costs $2,000 to upgrade your furnace, that's good information, but it's really important to understand how much money you can save each year because that really significantly changed the economic calculus on this. Okay, so as long as you have those two quantities, upfront cost savings, or excuse me, upfront cost difference and annual savings, you can calculate a simple payback. All right, so let's do another example. So let's say I go to a house and I recommend changing all the lamps in the house to LEDs, but it's going to cost $50. Let's say they have incandescents in there right now. So their upfront cost difference is either I spend $50 or I keep my lights, so I spend $0. So the upfront cost is going to be $50 out of pocket. But if I'm saving $100 a year, how long does it take for that to pay for itself? Again, you just apply the same formula, difference in the upfront cost divided by the annual savings. So in this case, it's actually 50 divided by 100, so it's a half a year or 6 months. So that's totally a reasonable result, especially if you have inefficient lamps that you're changing to more efficient ones. Generally speaking, you're going to get higher a year or more, sometimes up to 10, 20 years, and that can help you make a decision. Like if we look back at this one, maybe it's not worth it to replace this furnace because it's going to take 20 years to pay for itself. Maybe you just want to do a less efficient one that would have a 10-year payback, something like that. So this is a really good tool to help people make decisions in terms of energy savings based on having different upfront costs. Okay, and that's it for simple payback.